My role is with the Springboard team. There are 22.6 million IT pros on the planet, for which you are all some of that number. And my role is to support you in managing the Windows desktop. That includes Windows, Office, IE, Windows Intune, MDOP, and all the optimized desktop tools. And with me is my pet boy, Tony.
Thank you. Well, good thing though I got flown all the way in from Amsterdam for that one. So yeah, my name is Tony Krijnen. I work with Microsoft since 1995. Started at the help desk, and I'm really happy to be here and to do some really cool presentations for you guys. So Steven came up with the title, says like 20 tools, Windows tools you've never heard about, and I was like, oh, what if they did hear about like one or two of the tools? And he goes like, oh, at least they'll throw in a good demo and have a laugh on it, so at least we have some fun with the tools you might already know, right?
Absolutely. So our goal is, you know, hopefully you've seen a few of these, but chances are you may not have seen them all. But we're demo guys. We like to do lots of demos, so we don't have many PowerPoint slides, so we'll get right to it pretty quickly.
6 slides? We have
I think 6 slides. Is that okay? We don't have too many slides? All right, that's what we like. So let's jump right in. The Springboard series breaks down the content by Discover, Explore, Pilot, Deploy, and Manage, because we found out that 1 in 3 IT pros didn't know where to go to find the right information at the right time to deploy Windows. And I think if we take that concept and really look at, I'm ready to start working with Windows. I'm on XP, I'm ready to get off, I'm ready to do this, we really walk into some key questions. And the first question is migration. How do we know what we have on our network? Because you can't start to move off of an operating system until you know what applications you have. What are the machines that we have inside, and how it's going to run, and what will work as we move up to from IE6 to IE8 and 9, as we move from Windows XP to Windows 7, etc. And what kind of problems can we run into, and what sort of tools are there to help us to solve those issues? How do we test? How can we deploy? And what solutions do we have to do that? And how do we manage and enhance productivity? What about end user training? What about tools that help me, and what do I need to enable? And again, that's where the Springboard series on TechNet comes in. All the stuff that we're going to talk about, all the tools, can be found on our Microsoft.com/Springboard pages. So, as I said, our steps, when you think about it, you're really going to discover, explore. I want to move to Windows 7. What is the value of Windows 7? What are the key things? What are the tools that help me to know what I have now and what I need to move to? Then we get into pilot and deploy. I'm now ready to test this on a small group of users. I'm ready to start testing my applications. I'm ready to start to do this to a small group of users before I do this company-wide. And finally, manage. How am I going to lock down these users? How am I going to secure them and their environment? How do I ensure that they can do their jobs every day, but not get into things that we don't want them to get into, salespeople? So, you know, it's kind of a key and important thing. So let's take a look at Discover and Explore. And some tools that we called out were, first of all, the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit. And very simply, the Map Toolkit is going to go out and it's going to tell you what's on your network. It's not going to tell you every single machine, every single piece of software that you have out there, but it will give you a good idea. Because you really can't start until you know what kind of machines do we have, what kind of drivers do we have, how many copies of this and that do we have, things along that line. You want to talk about ACT for a minute? And then
So the other one is the Microsoft Application Compatibility Toolkit. So one thing, of course, when we are going to look at migration to a new operating system, the biggest hurdle, of course, always is like, what are the applications that are in use at the moment? You know, how many people are using them? And will they run on the new operating system? We find, of course, that in our test environment, when we do build the operating system and in our daily test, we take about, you know, roughly every main commercial product out there, and it's part of our main test cycle. So we try to fix application problems while we are building the OS. But for some versions that might not be possible because, for instance, with 64 bits, we now require you to have a signature on any driver that goes into the kernel. Now, if that application doesn't have that, you may need to have to upgrade the application. And if that doesn't fix it, then there's the other thing, and that's particularly where the Application Compatibility Toolkit comes in. I like to refer it always as like to create, as we say, a layer of lies. Because what it will do is tell the application everything it wants to know. Am I running Windows XP? Yes, you are. All right, am I an administrator? Absolutely. How much disk space do I have? How much do you want? It's all good.
Absolutely.
But the first thing, of course, you want to see if that application you have is actually in the compatibility list.
Yeah, the application compatibility list, and we'll show you all of these. We're just sort of setting the stage. The application compatibility list. How many of you are familiar with the application compatibility list? Raise your hand. Awesome. For those of you who did not raise your hand, it is the very first place that you should start. It is nothing more than a simple Excel spreadsheet with 24,000 lines. And on every line is an application that will work with Windows 7. I get people, yeah, I spent 6 hours and I set this up and I did this and I got this list. I'm like, did you look in the app compatibility list to see if your apps were there? The what? Yeah, probably could have saved yourself a lot of time. So go through the list and see if those are there first, and we'll show you the list. And then, of course, we have a similar list for Internet Explorer as you start to move from IE6 to IE8 and to IE9.
So let's go with the demo and start over at F.
Yep.
All right,
So let's start
with the map.
with map.
Right. So the first thing we love to show you is the tool. All these tools actually are free, so we particularly look at all the free tools here. Now we know, of course, you can have System Center and many more advanced management tools, but those, of course, require you to have an infrastructure investment and set up the servers and make sure they work. With the Microsoft Assessment and Planning Toolkit, we actually have a very simple wizard. It will go out. You can see here that I can check for Windows-based, Linux-based, VMware, Exchange, SQL, Azure, and MySQL, Oracle, a lot of different things that you might find in your organization. So I'm just going to leave the default here, Windows-based computers. Now, how do I want to discover them? So I can check the Active Directory. I can use the default Windows networking protocol. I actually can also say just scan an IP range. So it's a wide set of discovering capabilities I have here. I can import computer names from a file, manual enter names, credentials, and work it that way. So here goes Active Directory credentials, can fill that all out, and eventually it will go out. It will go to the Active Directory, find the computers in there, will scan my IP range, and while it's hitting those machines, it will try to get access to the machine, try to get information back from it, like which version of Windows is it, are you compatible of going to Windows 7, and instead of like doing the discovery now, let me show you what I already have found in my little demo network that I have here. So I can go to Windows 7 Readiness. It will show me the machines that it has found, which ones it couldn't connect to. I can go to Windows Server 2008 Readiness. We have 13 of those. How much virtual machines were discovered, which server roles were in there. But even going to something like Internet Explorer Discovery, I can see that in my environment I had, it's just a small demo environment, just 3 had IE8, 4 had IE9, I had 1 Firefox, which I just use for demos, of course. And then down here, this is the best one, of course, you have all the plugins that are loaded. And these are, of course, the things that, as you are looking at application compatibility, that you really want to look at.
And remember, when using map, because you have users that are not always on the network, that may be off and on at different times, and this tool is going to poll at different times, it may take several days to get a reasonably large database to have a good sampling of what you have. If you're looking for a more exact sampling, there is AIS, our Asset Inventory Service, which is part of MDOP. You get it with SAVL, which is a tool that is going to give you a far more exact list, but this will give you a very good idea and allow you to start.
Absolutely. So with that, let's move over to the other tool we have, which is the Application Compatibility Toolkit.
Let me ask this before we start. How many of you are familiar with the term shim or how to shim? Raise your hand. Good. For those of you that have not raised your hand, how many of you have been to a restaurant? Raise your hand if you've been to a restaurant. Good. How many of you have had a wobbly table at a restaurant? How many of you have shoved a matchbook or a bunch of napkins underneath one of those table legs? You just shim the table. Is the table fixed? No. But we have lied because now we believe the table is fixed because it no longer wobbles and drinks no longer fall in our lap. ACT works very much the same way. It does that lie, as Tony was saying. It'll answer the appropriate questions. And this really comes in handy when there's a piece of software. And I'll give you a real-world example. I had a driver for a netbook, which if I took my fingers and went like this, it would embiggen the web page. And then it would ensmallen the web page. And it wouldn't work because it was only made for XP. By the way, be careful using the word embiggen. I was in Germany. The woman in the translation booth had no clue how to translate that word. Just like this.
But it went, you made it up.
I did. Well, no, I've seen it used. I love the term, embiggen the web page, embiggen the photo. Please embiggen my drink and give me a larger one. We hear that a lot at the free parties.
Well, actually, we went on tour for the last 2 weeks for the
Yeah.
Springboard series. And it's kind of fun, like when you're a week on the tour, you start like, okay, in your next session, you have to use this word.
Right.
And then come up with the most awkward words, which is totally not related to IT. So it's kind of fun to work.
Absolutely. So the great thing was we put it in. It was only made for XP. Windows 7 rejected it. But what it did is it said, hey, this is going to work. So by installing the shim, when that driver went to install, it said, are you made for Windows XP SP3? And it said, yes, I am. It lied. It went ahead then installed the driver. I was able to embiggen and ensmallen. My life was good.
Yep, absolutely.
Sometimes it's the simple things. But that's what we're talking about. We talk about the layer of lies, that very often all it takes is a small code change, or it can be something as simple as just saying, yes, I am compatible.
Yep, and what we see here basically is that we have many lies in there. As you can see, everything actually adds, with the version, it's all a lie.
There you go.
Yep. XP, SP3 lie, and administrator lies. It's all in there. And of course, this is a great way to sort of like look at applications and then see if you can apply some of these fixes and see whether that will solve the problem. So just to give you a quick sample of that, the free application compatibility toolkit actually comes with a demo application, which is the stock viewer app, which by default will first say like, no, you must be an administrator to run this application. I hit OK, I get in there, OK, everything seems to work. Let me check some trends. Oops, that's not all too nice, but if it wasn't helpful enough, I also have some additional random hacks there. So yeah, pretty handy. So how do you solve this? Well, the thing is that you can create a particular shim, as we would call it, using the application compatibility database. So let me open up a database that Chris Jackson specifically made for this task. So we have some elevated create process, force admin access. We have some different layers here that we're going to add for that application. And what I'll do right now is I'm going to install this database, which of course doesn't mean that once you've had your application fixed using the shim, you have to install this tool on every machine. There's just a very simple command that you can use to have that roll out to all your machines. Now on Wednesday morning, 10:15, Chris Jackson will do a session particularly about this application compatibility. So I've applied the database. Let me go back in my application. There's no longer a problem now for you have to run as administration, so we lied about that. And also my trends are working out. So it's a very simple that these kinds of fixes allow you to have these simple applications to run on the Windows 7.
And it's not like it works with every app, but again, this is that next level that we're talking about. And let's take a look at the application compatibility list that we were talking about.
Absolutely.
So we'll bring that up.
The Excel sheet is right here.
Yep, it's downloadable from Springboard. As we start to, well, we'll hit the page down a few times, and you can start to see we have Japanese, we have everything. There's games, Adobe, the whole 9 yards. But hit Control End, and that should take us to line 24,142.
Yep.
You can use the search and find. I recommend that rather than going through all those lines.
Actually, what you can see as well in the database that's by default already in Windows, if you look at the applications, it has a lot of those applications and everything in there as well. So a lot of them are matching back and forth.
So these are some simple things that you can do as you start to get ready to pilot, as you're starting to do your testing to move through. And then, of course, it is the same thing to use that also for Internet Explorer. All right. Let's talk about piloting and deploying. MDT, DISM, the AIK, Windows Deployment Service, the IEAK, the Internet Explorer Compatibility Test, VAMPed, the Volume Activation Management Toolkit, which I like calling VAMPed. It has kind of a 20s feel. Security Compliance Toolkit, and the Internet Explorer Deployment Blocker. So, should we start with MDT?
Yeah.
MDT being one of my personal favorites.
Go ahead.
I love MDT. I hate Ghost. I hate it when people still use Ghost. I read a survey from Gartner. It was a Gartner report said the average IT pro is taking 6 hours to deploy a single desktop. That is insane. We just came off this tour. We went Toronto, Detroit, Chicago, Indianapolis, Dallas, Columbus. We would say, how many of you are only managing one image in your environment? Like 5 hands would go up. How many are managing 2 to 5. We had one person that's managing 36 images in their company. 36. And I said, so every time a service pack, anything new comes out, you got to open up all 36 of those images and work with that. And I say, MDT. One of the first things about MDT that I really like is that when you go to the Information Center, you go to Components, it'll tell you what components. There we see the Microsoft Application Toolkit. We see a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today are part of the deployment workbench. So very simply, what I do here is I can first take a look at my applications, and I want to create a USB stick. I want to create a WIM image or a PE image that I want to start here, and I have 3 options. I can either blow it out to a bootable USB key. If you come to my sessions tomorrow, I have 2 of them. One's called Alphabet Soup, where I will show you how to take a machine on Windows XP with data, migrate it to Windows 7 in less than 25 minutes. I'm going to show you how to take a brand new, off-the-shelf machine that you just bought from whatever manufacturer, how to add all the drivers, have a custom image, and migrate that machine in 17 minutes. That includes data and installing Office. So I could spend all day talking about this. I won't. We don't have enough time, and that's fine. So I want to add applications to my package. I want to add all my operating systems. I can simply go to Operating System, choose to import an operating system. I can bring it in via DVD, CD. I can capture a WIM file. I can bring in WDS. What is great is whatever I can build in MDT, I can export to WDS, or I can export to SCCM. What I build in SCCM and WDS can be exported and managed through MDT. One tool to rule them all. The geeks in the audience like that one. So, I can simply import my OS. You can see here that I have, whoops, I want to say yes to cancel. I have Windows 7, x86, x64, SP1. How did I do that? I removed the Windows 7, got the SP1 ISO, imported it in, boom. Now every machine from this point gets it. As I go to my applications, here is Office 2010. Again, I want to import a new app. I go in, I take a look. Here's applications with source files. I want to bring it in from a DFS share or an application bundle. And yes, I can add non-Microsoft applications to this. I can add Adobe. I can add anything I can package, I can bring in, just like I would through most of the other application tools. So I can add apps. I can also choose who gets them, whether I'm taking a look at IP address, group, users, etc., OUs. There's lots of ways to control it. Out-of-box drivers, so that your UPS driver says, hey, I just showed up with 120 Lenovo's. Awesome. I go out to Lenovo's website. I download all the drivers. I simply go to import drivers, whether they're EXEs or DLLs. I import them in. They're now part of the share. One of my favorite parts is if you've got a bunch of printers in your company, you can pre-install the print drivers here. So the first time that a user connects to that printer, there's none of this going out to the web to go look for a driver. The driver's there. The driver's ready to go. The user already has it on the machine. So if you've got custom machines, if you've got plotter printers, things like that, you deal with HMI systems, you can add all the drivers here. You can already have them dropped in and they're already part of your image. And the great part is if one of those drivers gets updated, all I simply have to do is click on one of those, hit delete, and then import the new driver. And then I update my deployment share. That deployment share could be shared by multiple people. So now all of the people who are installing new machines are using the latest and greatest drivers. Packages, IE9. During my demo tomorrow, I will take you not only from XP to Windows 7, but I will take you from XP to Windows 7 SP1. And I will take you from IE6, not to IE8, but IE9, without an extra set of reboots. Because we very simply can add a script that says, during install, don't install 8, pull it out, add 9 instead, and go with 9. So I don't have to go through multiple layers of doing this. I can add security patches. I can add language packs here. I could add antivirus signatures. I have a wide variety of things that I can add to packages. Once I get this all together, I build a very simple task sequence. I will show you one of the task sequences as I go into Properties. So I can go here to Task Sequences, and I have tons of great choices. I can say, hey, I want this thing bit locked at the end. I can make this a manual choice. I can script everything where the user does nothing but boots off of F12, whether it's off of a USB key, whether it's off the network. I can choose how that's going to happen. I can choose what applications are going to install, and I can even, as I go to install applications here, I can even choose which order they install in, because I have a wide variety of choices. I can do an if statement. If this is installed, do this. If it's not, do this. Whether I'm looking at Silverlight, whether I'm looking at .NET Framework, whether I'm looking at and making sure I install Link after I install Office, not before, because that doesn't work so well. I have operating system versions. Only do this if it's running SP1. Don't do this if it's doing it here. Query for MMIs, registry settings, dependencies on installed software, folder properties, or file properties. And I can edit and change the orders of these. An amazing amount of control. The best part, MDT and WDS are both free tools. If you go to one of our competitors and you go out and you go take a look, for example, at Acronis, it's $1,200 per server plus $200 per machine that you're going to be rolling it out to. The great thing is you could very easily, with WDS and this, do a great 10 or 20 machine pilot, zero-touch installation, very customizable at absolutely no cost. And learning this tool, not too difficult. I have some great sessions this week that Tony and I are going to be working on. We encourage you to do them. So that is MDT in a nutshell. Let me show you just one last piece of it, and that is once I go to my deployment share and I build all of the pieces that I need inside here, and the thing to remember is we're only managing applications, operating systems, and drivers. That's it, and any of those three can be updated. I can add simple rules, but I can go here, and here's where I export it as a PE image, as a light touch ISO. I just need to make the USB bootable. I can export as a WIM or a generic ISO. So I have a lot of options on how I want to take this deployment share, this deployment image that I've built, and build that out. But it's never an image. We never open it up. We just deal with the individual pieces.
I want to cover a bit about the XP migration and leave.
I would love to. We have a new add-in called P2V, Physical to Virtual Migration. Now, P2V is based on the P2V tool that Mark Russinovich came up with, and we've now brought it into MDT. And what it allows you to do is, if you have someone's mission critical, so let's do this. How many of you are consultants? Raise your hand. Okay. Always fun as a consultant, because what you don't want to do is walk into the person who signs all the checks and say, okay, I'm going to migrate you from Windows XP to Windows 7. Because the thing they're going to say to you is, okay, that's great, but if the software that writes the check for me to pay you with doesn't work, you're not getting paid. How comfortable do you feel with your XP to 7 migration? You go, pretty good, because I'm going to use P2V. And what it does is it takes the complete Windows XP image, apps and all, virtualizes it during the deployment process, builds the Windows 7 image and puts it there, but then through VPC has access to the complete XP machine as it was virtualized inside. Now, a few quick things. Number one, must have software assurance volume licensing to do this legally. Number two, hard drive cannot be over, I believe it's either 124 or 150 gigs. You can't get higher than that, which if it's an XP machine is fine. But the third thing, remember, we're trying to get people off of XP, not just re-give them XP and have them use Windows XP through Windows 7. So it's great to make sure that over that week everything works, it works properly. Then we can remove that XP image once we're sure. The data has automatically migrated over as part of the Windows 7 migration, so we're just giving them to the apps. So P2V is a free add-in to MDT for those of you who are software assurance volume licensing customers. That is MDT.
And the user state migration.
The user state migration toolkit is a big piece, because what we do is we basically take all the user's data, we move it over, we yank out XP, we drop in Windows 7, and then we bring back all their data. So everything inside of the user folder, that's what was on their desktop, their My Docs, their pictures, all of that gets migrated over. So that's great, because we're not having to plug in an external hard drive, move everything over, ghost the machine, and move everything back.
Yeah, that's what I really like about this, solution, that you actually are marking the areas on the hard drive where the user data is, wipe everything around it, gone, and then Windows 7 on there, and just point the pointers to My Documents, everything back to those areas.
And as you're doing it, you can also build a backup, because as we know, how many of you have bought hard drives for salespeople, and when you say, where's your backup, they're like, oh yeah, that's that hard drive you sent me 8 months ago. Yeah, they're never going to use it. So that's also great, as we can also set that up at that time as well.
Okay.
All right.
So let's take a look at one of the other tools, which is DISM.
Yep.
DISM, as you might know, is just a command line within Windows. Steven told you about the MDT and how you can build a WIM forward. When you look at the Windows 7 DVD or the Windows Server 2008 or R2 DVD, also has the WIM files. And with the DISM tool, so when you build those images, it's very easy to just go out there and take one of those images and mount them. Now, this might be known to many of you. One other thing I really like, which is new in Windows 7, might be a little hidden gem there. If I go to the properties of my computer, go to manage my computer. Yep, I got it. And then, of course, we have the disk management here, where I can look at my disks and see what's in there. Now, one of the new features that was added here is that I can actually also create a VHD and attach a VHD. So you have a virtual machine that has a VHD file. I can just go in, take one of those VHD files, and actually just mount it as a drive. So here it adds a drive letter, becomes E, and I can open the folder and look into that. So that's another great little hidden gem. People might have known how you can mount that.
It's great for those people that have a lot of different VHDs that you deal with, and you need to get a quick piece of information, which version is in here, which version of the app. It's a great way to be able to work with that quickly.
Yep. All right, so we are mounting the image here using the DISM, and eventually when I go into that directory, I can look at that files in there, change that, add that. In this case, I added it as read-only, but at least allows me to look which files are in there. So this is nothing more than a mounted WIM file, what I'm looking at right now, because that is what I choosing my WIM mount, actually.
Yep. DISM stands for the Deployment Image Servicing Manager.
Absolutely.
So, what do we have next? We talk about Windows 8, the Wake.
Yeah, so another machine, tool, of course, to manage all those images is the Wake.
Yep, absolutely. WDS, which, as we said, is a great deployment tool for small business. If you've got somewhere between, too many users to just throw in a USB key, and I really kind of want to manage that when you get out to 10, 15 users, up to, 50, 60. WDS is a great deployment server to be able to use. It really is that precursor of SCCM. So if you're going, look, SCCM is expensive and it's hard to start putting together and this and that, I've only got 50 users, I'm going to stick with putting a bunch of CDs in the machine. Absolutely not. Really look at either building out bootable USB drives that you can use quickly, which is going to be faster, or moving to WDS as a way to deploy those images.
And the great thing about WDS is if you look at it, it all works with images. So you can just take your Windows 7 DVDs, Windows Server DVDs, and add them to WDS. So when you are doing a boot using F12 to go boot from the network, connect to the WDS there. But the great thing is the combination with the MDT. So building the MDT images and just have them pop into your WDS, then that way you have your own custom image basically ready, and that's just a matter of replacing the boot image you do right here.
Right. If you know how to use MDT, you know how to use WDS, and you have a very good idea on how to use SCCM. So the great thing is just that the knowledge passes on as you start to move through those.
All right.
All right. We have the IEAK, the Internet Explorer Administrator's Kit. The IEAK, how many of you have used the IEAK in the past? Good, quite a few. What have you used it for? You, yes. The guy who raised his hand. What have you used it for? Just to deploy it? Okay. Anybody used it to kind of lock it down or to standardize an image? Yeah. What types of stuff are you looking to lock down? Awesome. Yeah, very simply, it keeps you from having to go to all the machines in your company and say, here's going to be the default web page, here's the trusted zones, here's the non-trusted zones. We want every machine to automatically open up to our intranet page. Here is dial-in, never use modem, etc. All of those choices, all of those customizations that you would look to make, you can set up through the IEAK, and then you can push them out to all of your users. And it's a great, very simple way to go ahead and manage that. There is now an IEAK out for IE9. So you can start to use that, and there is, of course, one for IE8.
Absolutely. So another tool we have is the IE compatibility test, which is part of the application compatibility toolkit. So when you have websites and intranet applications, you want to test those. In the application compatibility toolkit, there's also a specific test method to also make sure that those are compatible with the Internet Explorer.
Vamped. Vamped Tony will do a demo, but very simply, it's our volume activation management. And one of the great things that people are saying is, I'm tired of having a separate server for every operating system and every version of Office to go ahead and manage those. So one of the features in Server 2008 R2 is the ability to manage licensing for Windows Vista, Windows 7, and Office 2010 all through a single licensing server. So Tony, vamped.
Yep. The other thing, of course, is that with the new Office 2010 having also the requirement to actually use activation, even for volume license, we just, for Office as well, took notion of what was already done in Windows, and Office 2010 totally leveraged the Mac and the volume license tools that we have available right now. So what I have here is the volume activation management tool. So I can here see like, okay, give me an overview and search for my computers in Active Directory, search for computers in my work group using LDAP, and eventually I can just go out, go to these servers and say like, okay, tell me back, what is your license key, how were you licensed, get an overview of that, which is of course a very good step. Get an overview of what was licensed, so we can see here, these are the different servers I have running, I can see which key they were licensed with, and eventually, of course, I can go into my product keys and have a look at that, check what the remaining keys that I have available on those. And even if I have some products that are not unknown at the moment, so I have some machines that might not respond at that time, I can easily update it and go update status with these credentials. Goes out, tries to connect to that machine, we'll see it just worked, grabbed it, was a server. So that's added there now as well. So it's an easy way to actually go out there and see, which machines have which license, which version, everything on there, and make sure that you're in compliance, of course, with that. And that's one of the great things of the volume activation management tool.
Mm-hmm. Security Compliance Manager is one of the next ones. You want to talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, the Security Compliance Manager is a great tool that we came up with. As many people said, of course, like, hey, I'm installing applications, but I'm not really sure what this application is changing and adding. Are they opening ports on my machine? So one of the tasks I like a lot about Security Compliance Manager is that actually it takes like a snapshot of the system. You would install your application, install the drivers and everything that comes with it, and then you say like, okay, now give me the security compliance overview, and it basically gives you an overview. We'll do an analysis of the changes that were made. So in the report, it will say like these ports were opened, we have these files in there, and also if there's known that something is depending on something that has vulnerability, it will point it out to you. So it's a great tool to show that.
Yep. And then we have our Internet Explorer deployment blocker, which basically says we don't want people to migrate to newer versions. We want to control when that's going to happen and how it allows you to block that from being advertised to end users. So that's a very simple tool, but it's a good one to make sure your users don't start jumping ahead or putting things in that we don't want them to put ahead.
All right, so let's go back to your machine. Okie dokie. Move on to manage.
Yep.
So we have the different tools there. The last one, still we count down to 20.
Problem step recorder, Windows troubleshooting. We'll talk about PowerShell, resource monitors, our data encryption toolkit, NAP, and Windows performance analysis. Next, we have bonus ones. We're going to give you more than 20 tools. We actually have another 4 or 5 tools beyond that. So we'll start with PSR. PSR is absolutely one of my favorite tools. So it's the hidden. We type in PSR, it comes up, and then we can start to record. Where does PSR come in handy? Again, PSR is the greatest tool in the world if you have to support salespeople. Salespeople are some of God's special children. They're just not as technically savvy as the rest of us. They require a 30-minute, phone call to do something that the rest of us can do in about 5 minutes. So so we're good, absolutely. So help desk call, hi, I'm using my calculator and I can't get any of the numbers to work. What? Yeah, most of the numbers aren't working. Only 1 or 2 of them are working, but other ones aren't. The on-screen calculator, no, my keyboard's fine. It's just some of the numbers on the on-screen calculator aren't working. This starts to become like an Abbott and Costello, who's on first kind of thing. So we go, okay, Bob, who spells his name backwards, Bob, turn on your problem step recorder. Type in PSR, hit enter, and he does, and then click start recording. And what are you doing? So he says, okay, he says, I'm typing in calc, and I'm launching the calculator, and then I'm going here, and my 2 and my 5 and my 9 and my 6 aren't working. all I can get is, you know, some ones and zeros here to work, and it's really weird, and I can't figure out why. All right, fair enough. So, you know, that's great. I can even say, you know, Bob, why don't you add a comment right there and say, what's the problem? So he goes, can't type any number but 0 and 1. Okay, great. So he stops recording. Wonderful. And it says, okay, let's save this. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to call this one Bob, but I'm going to spell it the right way, not backwards. So we'll call that Bob, and he closes out. And then Bob emails that to my help desk team. And here's what we see. It creates what's called an MHTML file. So I'm going to go ahead and open this MHTML file. And it takes a moment for it to come up. And here's what we see.
Drum.
So it says, okay, the user left-clicked on the start menu. It goes through every single step. And then I'm noticing, hey, Bob, you got binary chosen. That's why you're only getting ones and zeros. You're working in a binary world. And he goes, I don't know what that means. And we go, we understand, because it's Bob. Make that a little bit bigger. So what's nice is it will completely go through every step. It'll tell you everything that Bob did, all the way down until he finally closes out of the recorder. So we'll continue to go down. There's even his comment. User comment, can't type any number but 0 and 1. It then also goes through some nice additional details. It tells me how many steps. And where this really comes in critical is every time I launch this, I get an error code. I get a window that pops up. Well, what was in the window? I don't know. I closed it. Was there a code in it? Yeah, there was some number. Tells me how many steps. It tells you which operating system and which version. We can see we're running a 64-bit version of Windows 7 SP1 RTM. It will go through every single step. Which application was being used? Which version of the application was being used? For those of you that are trainers, by the way, what a great way to go through something and create screenshots as you're doing things for your end users, where you can actually go through a whole process. It creates all your screenshots and all your steps. You can turn it into documentation. There's a cool little tip and trick for you. I got this guy shaking. You've done that? Plenty of times. Saves you a lot of time and effort.
You know, oh yeah, it's a
Well, of course they're going to call you. Yeah. That's your job. No, that's the way it works.
I really like it when I'm doing server, because this one is also in server.
Yeah.
So any of you is like managing servers for the client, you have to do some change management, document what you've just changed. Oh, here's the PSR file. It's everything I changed, right? It's very handy. Step by step.
So that's the problem step recorder. It's one of those that I know we talked about very early in the Windows 7 days, and I'll run into people like, oh yeah, that problem step recorder thing, which you guys were all excited about like a year and a half ago when we first showed it, and a lot of you have forgotten about it. So don't forget about the problem step recorder, a great tool that end users can do simply and easily to start to pull things together.
All right. Let's move over to my machine, and for some reason, I just completely lost my Aero glass.
I hate it when that happens.
It gives me a headache. My productivity just goes down the drain, right?
Absolutely, because now I can't look at glassy things. Yeah, you have to look at solid things.
It also makes me feel back in XP and everything. So
we don't want that.
So what do, right? We have a great little action center here. And one of those things in the action center is actually called troubleshooting. Oh, there it is. Want to do a square there. The little tool, of course, we use to zoom in and do the arrows is Zoom It from sysinternals. So the troubleshooters were first introduced when we had the Internet Explorer and you could get a connection. You had this like diagnose my connection dialog, and that worked really well. So we added a lot of them in Windows 7. And, you know, it's hardware, it's my programs, can't connect to the internet, right. And very great. Look, display Aero desktop effect. So,
and before you click that, actually go back for a second. Up at the top, no, right there, just make it big again. Just zoom in.
And big in?
Excellent. Compatibility, and big in. Yes, please, and big in. Thank you.
You want me to hoover over?
We don't want to hoover over it. He's Dutch, so we were doing a session a few weeks ago, and he goes, so I hoover over this. I'm like, what? He goes, hoover. You mean hover? Yes, hoover. No, hoover means to vacuum something, not to hover. So then he goes, okay, so I moved my arrow over.
Yeah, I moved the mouse.
I move it, you don't hoover it.
Yeah.
So, how many of you are familiar with compatibility mode, where you right-click an exe and you can choose it as an older version? Yeah. It's a great way to do that. Programs is going to do it for you. So if you have users that have no clue how to use compatibility mode, right-click, go to Properties, go to the compatibility mode, pick it. They can just click that and do it. If they're having problems configuring a device or using a printer, it will walk them through all the steps. Same with connecting to the internet. It will flush their DNS cache. It resets their IP address. It will go through all of those steps that your help desk usually does. And the fact that you can script these and do it becomes
so let's
a great
take a look.
option.
So, right, I'm going to just have it take a look at it here. So what we see? We see checking caller depth, checking my video driver. It checks if a service was running. Now I see some blinking. I already have arrow glass because it just found out using PowerShell in the back that my Windows Desktop Management Service wasn't running. So it fixed that. Now why are we showing this? It's not because it was so cool that we just fixed arrow glass. Now the cool thing about this thing is that it's just using PowerShell in the back, and we have a complete SDK with which you can write your own PowerShell scripts and add your troubleshooters to these clients. So you're running a line of business application, that's CRM, it needs an ODBC connection, it needs some files there. Then you can write a PowerShell script and have the user that calls in, my CRM doesn't work, you go, did you already click the troubleshooter? Yeah. The troubleshooter will go in, and the PowerShell, you can fire it off, like if not exists, do that. If it doesn't have the connection, can you connect to the server? We'll do all these tests for you and actually give you more details instead of like having the user go through a whole set of troubleshooting steps and already come up with like it's probably this cost.
This is great if you've got VPN folks where they're constantly breaking the VPN. And they call in, okay, do this, retype in the name, all that, where they can click it. Or a secondary, if VPN isn't working, where it will automatically switch to a secondary VPN connection. You can PowerShell script that, where it goes through, it rebuilds the VPN connection, it goes through, especially if you've got like the secure ID tags, you got to go through the Cisco one, which has all those steps. You could do that. Think about if you train your users, hey, if your VPN connection isn't working, click these two first and try it before you call help desk. How many help desk calls you can reduce as you start to look at things like that. And that's really the key that we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's of course using PowerShell in the back. I don't want to go too much in depth in PowerShell, but it's another great tool that's in there. Of course, use it for the servers, for Exchange, for Active Directory. Everything is PowerShell nowadays.
Yep.
And of course, it's in Windows 7 by default as well. So this is one of the ways you can use that on one of those clients.
Yep.
So want to talk about Resource Monitor?
Resource Monitor, absolutely.
So let me switch to your machine.
Please do. So one of my favorite things that I really love in Windows 7, which is a huge jump, is when you go into your Task Manager, sure, you see all your tasks running. I'll make this bigger. And I guess I did. I thought I had mine. There we go. Yes, that's fine. Thank you. So I can see all this running, and that's great. I can go to my processes, but what we notice here when we get into performance is we now have this extra tab called Resource Monitor. And a lot of people don't open this and don't see the amazing value that this has. So let's take a look. The Resource Monitor will give you a full overview of all of the files running, 40% CPU usage, 112 maximum frequency. You could sort this by average CPU usage, by current CPU usage, by how many threads, by how many PIDs. We can then jump into, and we can take a look as we dump a little bit deeper into CPU. We can take a look at all the services, the associated handles that go with that, and the associated modules. So we can deep dive into any one of these. We can also, on the right, change our views for this. We can go into memory. 29% usage of memory. How much is used? How much is reserved by the hardware? This allows us to significantly double-click into what is causing these various machines' issues. We can take a look at disk, how much disk space and how much disk activity is being used, and how is storage being used as we start to look at it. This is really great as we start to go through it.
What I like really a lot is you can also sort on the columns, so you can see, okay, which process is currently doing the most reads per second, which is one doing the most writes, and which is total. So you can really narrow down, like my machine is really slow, and see, of course, which of the main components that might cause that. Drill in there, and most of the time, of course, might be I/O. We used one of these tools to actually troubleshoot one of our issues at one of our customers that had really slow machines, and it turns out it was just really not enough memory. So a lot of the disk I/O was going to this page file, and we were able to quickly point it out using this tool.
One of my other favorites is listening ports. I get that all the time. Well, I don't know which machine, which ports are currently being used. We can take a look at not only at our TCP connections, we can also see which ports are currently being used for listening, which ones are specified, unspecified, etc. So, hey, what ports is this piece of software using? Which ones are they going out? You have this incredibly powerful resource monitor that most people don't even know exists inside of the Task Manager.
Absolutely.
So that's the resource monitor in a nutshell.
So let's take
it
to another tool, which goes a little bit more into the security and management. But one of my favorite tools is actually NAP, Network Access Protection. So make sure you just make sure that the health of the computer that comes into your network, that it is okay. So we've been traveling, right? Where we've been?
We've touched a lot of dirty networks.
Right. So
we don't know where they've been.
You plugged it in everywhere.
And who they've been associating with.
Right, so you might have hit a rogue access point, somebody might have infected something in there. Now, of course, do you want to be the one that comes back in the office and goes like, look what I got on my travels for you, right? So that's what NAP comes in. I like Network Access Protection because it's a very simple process to set up, and the most advanced way, it's using IPsec. So if my machine proves it's healthy, it gets an IPsec certificate saying, yes, I'm healthy. With the certificate, I go to the server, I got access to the server. The second something happens on my computer, it's no longer healthy, my certificate gets revoked, so I no longer have access to these servers. And to show you that in a typical technical role, I have a program that doesn't work. And of course, I first had to break a little bit so I would be administrator and I can actually do some things. My program doesn't work, and that, of course, has to be because of the firewall. Well, you know, some policies were set up, so I cannot really change anything here on my firewall. But thank goodness, you know, I'm technical, and I know, of course, the firewall is actually a service. So let me go in here and let me just stop this service. All right, so that's stopping. We saw a little bit red, it's all green again. And what just happened is, if I refresh this, the server has already started. Hold on, I really would like to stop the firewall. All right, stop. I could not even stop it because it was already started again. So, remediation. The firewall stopped, I immediately try to start it. So I really have to be smarter now. So what I'll do is like, okay, you restarted, fine, put it on disabled. Hit stop, now you try to start it. Well, of course, as you can see, that's not going to work. So eventually, instead of like the balloon you see in the bottom here, turn on the firewall, I get a message now that's saying network access protection just kicked you off the network. So your network access might be limited. And as you can see, you can do a nice customized message saying, you know what you did, and so did we. Remain seated, quarantine team is on its way. Nice, those customizable messages. All right, so that's probably not a really good thing to do. So let me fix that. Go back to automatic and start it up. Now, as soon as I start, you can already see the domain here, that's all green again, and eventually, even the exclamation mark here will be updated automatically, and at that point, I'll just regain my health and everything's good again, can go back to the network. We use this in Microsoft as well. We have direct access set up, so it's one of the best experiences I've had so far. You know, you get this email with like a file share or like an intranet site. And now with direct access, I can just click that link and it will automatically get me onto the corporate network if my health is proven valid to the corporate network. So now having the firewall on, antivirus not up to date, not installing the latest updates, and I won't be able to connect to the network.
And this can also be used with multiple different, not just Windows PCs. There are also going to be NAP can be set up with, you can use this with iOS and Android and a lot of different operating systems to ensure as a lot of different devices, not just Windows devices connect to your network, but that health is done, and that can also be managed through UAG as some of the other tools. So as you start to look at, I've got iPads, I've got Android devices, I've got Macs, I've got Windows, leveraging NAP and Unified Access Gateway becomes a great tool to manage the health of those coming in. Because my favorite thing about Mac folks is they love to say, I don't need no antivirus software, I'm on a Mac.
You got to say those are a really good demo indeed. You have a plugin for Linux, so you can just have that running on the client. As soon as that client stops his IP tables, bang, you're off the network. It's very that simple. It's really a great fixture.
Okay, data encryption toolkit.
Data encryption.
It's a series of resources, really, is what it is.
Absolutely, yeah. So the data encryption toolkit is another tool. Well, it's, like you said, it's a set of resources. And it talks about like how you can manage BitLocker, how you can set it up in your environment.
Yep, absolutely. And then finally, the Windows Performance Analysis.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite, and I guess it's one of the best hidden gems. We had a couple of my friend consultants in the Netherlands work with a lot of their customers that had problems with machines being slow. And you might not be aware of this, but there is a Windows Performance toolkit. So let me dive in there. It's just available as a free download. It's got a performance analysis, and it's got the performance suite. Now, the thing I like to use it for the most is, let me just do that through the Explorer. Performance toolkit. It is the fact that it comes with this boot manager command. So I'm able to have this machine basically restart and then create a complete log of everything that happens from the moment the Windows operating system is starting. And just to show you how that looks, I will go into the Performance Toolkit and take the Performance Analyzer. And I'll open up a trace. So this is a trace from a boot I did this morning. Open that up. So what you'll see here is really nice. So we got, first of course, we got CPU, so I can see how much CPU cycles are being used for the total of the boot process. The states of the CPU, the counts of I/O, disk utilization, processes, and of course the most interesting part is lower down at the bottom. Here we can see each process and how long that process took while we were booting Windows. Going further down, we can actually see a total list of all the calls that were made, which objects were called. And so we've used this a lot of time with some clients where they say, like, the machine takes so long to boot. And just taking this tool and be able to look at what calls were made, which processes were made, we found that in some cases, group policy scripts were just taking up 5 or 6 minutes of the boot of that machine. In some other cases, not enough memory was another one that immediately was discovered using this toolkit. And once again, this is a free toolkit, so you can look into it. It's called the Xperf. If you look for that using Bing, you find the Performance Toolkit, can download it and install it on a machine and do some testing with it.
Okay. So that's our 20, but we have more because we still have a little bit more time. So go ahead and switch me over to C, and I want to show off something, one or two kind of cool things. The first one is called ELF. It stands for the Enterprise Learning Framework, and this is a great end-user readiness tool. Because, well, this is all great for IT pros, but how do I get my end users ready? And we're going to talk about a few of those. We have some good Office stuff, but I thought I'd start with a Windows one. I wrote a blog post about this about a year or so ago. So we can simply go in and say, okay, what topics? I want to get them ready for Windows 7, and you know what? Office 2010, Access, Excel, Outlook, Word. That sounds really good. I'm going to go ahead and hit next on that. And goes, okay, well, what types of people are these? Are they information workers? Are they influential information workers like executive admins? Are they support people? You know what? These are really support people. And it'll go through and say, okay, that's kind of cool. So when do you want to start training them and getting them ready? Well, I'd like to start doing this. Let's make this first one the information they need a month out. And you know what? I'll actually add a month out, a week before, and deployment day. Let's do it right up until our day of deployment. And topics that apply to everybody, people that are looking to collaborate, people that want to attend meetings with presentations, you can pick that sort of information so we can go through. They have a mobile PC, they travel and attend work from home, great, they're going to hit next. And then it says, I want only tips and tricks, I want only highlighted. It's going to build all these topics, and then it says, okay, cool, here you go. So I'm going to hit finish, and what it does is I'm now ready to create an HTML-ready email that will open up, and this is what it's going to do, and I want to allow. Didn't like that. That'll learn me. So what it does do is it creates an HTML email that's already prepared with literally links. Hi, here are 5 topics in Office. Here's how you do this, this, and this. And you go ahead and you can click it, and it clicks them, and it takes them right to videos or short white papers or FAQs that they can use to help prepare your users. And you can send these out at various times. So it's going to completely build that for you and becomes a great tool, ELF, the Enterprise Learning Framework, to do that. Office is becoming a big thing. We hear a lot on Word. Okay, Windows XP to 7 we got. And the great thing is, because so many of our users have purchased Windows 7 machines over the past year or two, they're pretty familiar with Windows 7. But it's that Office 2010 ribbon bar that scares our users. So what can we do to get them over the ribbon bar? And we have 2 really great suggestions. And I'll let Tony cover the first one of my personal favorites.
Actually, looking at the ribbon, it's kind of a funny story, because when you go back to our first ribbon, of course, with Office 2007, I spoke to the group product manager that made the decision to change our toolbars and our pull-down menus into the ribbon. I go like, how did you get to that? He goes like, well, you know.
I was drunk.
No.
Oh, okay. Screw the users. We'll throw ribbon in there.
Yeah. Could have been that, but he had a better story than that, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he said, like, look, we've been added a lot of features constantly, and we try to hold on, you know, to this file, edit, view, insert all the time, and at some point it just doesn't fit anywhere. So when you look under tools, it sort of like became the garbage bin of everything. We didn't be able to fit that on the file edit. We see a lot of people that have turned on that anonymous, you know, help Microsoft to improve my product. And we see exactly which buttons you're clicking, which are used a lot. We also see a lot of people that just go like, file, edit, you know, and they are searching for something. You can see that it goes on, and then eventually they get frustrated, can't find it. They send a request into Microsoft like, hi Microsoft, it would be really cool if you could add this feature to Word. 66% of those requests, oh, it's already in there, you know, so people can't find it.
Right.
And the other thing was a really good example is like, you know, going into a table and you want to give it a color, so you go to like extra table color red. Ugh. Then you have to do it again, you know, extra table color green. And it's like those repeating commands that were really difficult. So they say like, okay, look, we got a ton of new features, so we're going to change the user interface. So he goes like, look, I'm sitting at my desk. Jonathan comes walking in with a huge stack of paper, and he goes like, ugh, dunk, on my desk. So he goes like, yeah, Jonathan, what's with all the paper? He goes like, dude, you wanted a new user interface, so these are all the features in Word. You have to find a new spot for, good luck. But here's the thing, right? He starts like, that's almost the day I quit my job, but he starts looking at these pages, and he goes like, okay, let's see. This is all around pictures. This is around tables, and he starts sorting it out. And that's how the whole notion of the ribbon came, that you really want to be, you know, context sensitive. Of like, if I'm not having a picture, why do I have the picture tools there? It's not necessary. So that's how the ribbon came. Then, of course, there's a lot of people that go like, yeah, but I really knew how to do it in Word 2003. I can't find that function now. And that's really great. We have the interactive guide for that.
And this is where my Dot story comes in. I spent 15 years as an IT pro managing end users. And whenever I get asked to do it, both as a consultant or whatever, I always think of Dot. Dot is the woman, or man, maybe Bob, who's worked for the company for 19 years. When you say about anything, how did you learn how to do your job? They're like, well, this person taught me and they taught me before it, and I do it because that's the way that I was taught. Dot is the person who calls help desk. And if she does not have the background pattern with her grandkids on it, you are not going to answer her question via the phone. No, you are going to go all the way downstairs to her desk, and you are going to make sure the picture with her grandkids shows up. That's Dot. 5 icons on the desktop, and every day she knows she clicks that one to do her job, and she knows tools, mail merge, and that's what she knows. And she does not like change. So this is where this really helps, because you put Dot in front of this.
Yep, and you can say like, well, I also used to have the online collaboration. Of course, you also have the little pop-up already there of where it is at now. So let me take a, track
tools. Let's go down to letters and mailings.
So track changes, for instance, goes to the review, click on that button. So
there you go.
It's a little flash file that goes back and forth. You can actually have this available offline, so you can put them on your intranet and make them available there. Right. This one goes for Word 2007. Of course, we also have them for 2010.
So why don't we show them? Let's show mail merge. So we go to tools. One of the ones I know a lot of people use a lot. So we go to tools. We go down to letters and mailings, right there, and then we go over to mail merge, and then we click it, and then it goes, here's how you do it now.
Mailings.
Mailings, start
Start
mail
mail
merge.
merge.
That's it.
Very simple.
So you can sit them in front of this and make them feel comfortable that the things that they use every day are not that difficult, and this is a free tool on the web. Finally, what's the tool is, it's on the Office Online site, and what do they actually call that tool?
It's the command line reference.
Command line reference tool. We'll have these links available. I'll show you really quick if you can actually go back to my deck.
Yeah, so it's the interactive guide, command reference guide is what they call it.
If you go to Microsoft.com/Springboard and you click on Office in the Discover and Explore area, you will see it as one of the links over on the right. That is the 2010 version you're looking at.
No, this is 2007.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, there is a 2010 version. 2000, it is 2003 to 2010. There is no 2007 to 2010 version. Sorry, yeah.
Let me see if I can find it.
Okay. What about for what? They will go through Outlook. I think that's one of the ones that they're not currently building. I think we have Word and PowerPoint. Excel. I don't think they built Outlook yet. I think it's being built. You'd have to ask the Office team. You can stop by their booth and they can tell you.
All right.
All right. I want to show one more quick thing, and then we'll answer some more. And then we'll answer some questions. So, Ribbon Hero. There's a new version of Ribbon Hero out. You can download it for free. Type in Ribbon Hero 2.
Let's ask who knows Ribbon Hero. You know who knows?
Anybody play the original one, number 1?
Ribbon
this is
Hero's
now number
great.
2, and they've actually done Death of Clippy. They brought Clippy back. For those of you who remember Clippy. So what's nice is you can say, hey, I want to learn how to change text. You clip it, you click it, you open it up, and it says, okay, copy the location from the word balloon. And if you go, well, I don't know how to do that, it'll give you a hint. And it will come up and it'll say, select the location, select the location, Banks of the Nile, and the word balloon at the left. Great, I need another hint. And it says, press Control-C to copy. Great, so I hit Control-C, and I go ahead and I do that. So and then it has you move it wherever you want to do it. Great. Now it says paste it into the invitation under the location. I hit paste. And it says, well, I must not have done it right because I need the same formatting. I understand. So I want to position the pointer, right-click, merge, and it will actually go through all the steps for you. And it's fun. You can actually set up a SharePoint server where your employees can go against each other and get points and try to run this out. And this is for all of our products pretty much across. So the Ribbon Hero 2 is a great tool. And there you go. You get all the little balloons. Isn't that neat? You get points. If you don't need hints, you get more points. And it goes through and it will do that and then bring you back to your main
You just
thing.
had 0 points because you took all the hints, right?
I did.
Yeah.
I got 0 extra points. I got 200 because I finished it, but more.
Okay.
So you can go through, and it's great. And they have all these different, Middle Ages, and it's fun. They've made it really fun, but it's a great way to sit down people and say, okay, play with this. It's a game. Yes, you get to play a game at work, but it's great because they're going to learn how to use these key features.
I actually use it a lot because I think it will also allow you to discover things and functionality you might not have seen before.
I did. See, I got to level 2 already. I finished level 1. I'm at level 2. So, let's bring this up. So, what did we cover? We talked about MAP, the tool that can go out and can tell you what you have on your network. We talked about the Application Compatibility Toolkit, which can go out and tell you which applications are compliant, which ones will work with Windows 7, and which ones are supported in Windows 7. And there is a difference between that. And it also provides shims. We have our application compatibility list for Windows, that big long list that tells you what works and what doesn't. The list for Internet Explorer, MDT, DISM, the Wake, Windows Deployment Services. We're not going to read through the full list, but you get the idea. We have covered 20 tools plus an additional 3, so we gave you bonus. So let's answer some questions because we have
one more remark.
One more remark.
Because what we did here is that every line here is actually a hyperlink to the TechNet page that will take you to the tool, will give you more explanation. So when you download the deck from the CommsNet, those links are right in there, so you can pick the tool you want to start with and immediately get started on that.
And over 95% of these are available on Springboard, so it's the best place to go. What questions can we answer for? And again, I got some passes for the party to give away if you don't already have one. Yes, sir.
Right. So very good question here on the Windows side-by-side folder, how to manage that. So the only really thing you can do to manage that is that once you've installed a service pack, you then can basically say, I no longer need the older components. There is a misconception that the Windows side-by-side folder has a lot of space in it. But actually, a lot of the files in the Windows directory are pointing to the WinSX folder. So those, when you do the overview of disk space, those are counted twice now. I'd love to tell you more about like how that works. I also created a blog on that, so we can take that offline together with you. Oh, that's a good one.
I don't know if there's a way to customize it, but you know what? Email me and I'll find out.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So the question was, how can we get PSR past 100
There you
screen
go.
captures? And Stephen will look into that.
There you go.
We go to the front here.
All right, more questions. Yes, sir. Yeah, there's microphones, so if you can step up the microphone, it makes
Go
it
to
easier.
the left.
Somebody else can hear your
Go ahead,
questions
sir.
if we can.
With that cap.
Yeah, in the map, there was SCCM integration.
Yep.
There you skipped over that. What exactly? Does that go to the servers or does that do something on the agent?
So the question is on the SCCM integration with map. I haven't really looked at it myself. You can comment on that?
There is a way where you can do an export back and forth where it can take a look at that and it can do that. So that's basically what that does. It's a good one.
All right. So the gentleman next to it.
I'm going to try to hurt anybody.
How does that relate to KMS?
It's a little different than KMS. Do you want to talk about the difference between VAMP and KMS, or you want me to?
If you can.
The good thing about VAMP is KMS, where you're actually just, this is where you're basically saying, it's a volume license, here's how I'm going to manage, as opposing a whole set of keys, and that's really the difference. One is a key management service where you buy a key that's good for 5, 10, 15, 20. The other one basically looks at it all up through volume licensing, and it goes out. How many activations, how's that being done?
Yeah, the other thing is that the KMS is actually the service that does the activation for you. If you keep it in the house, when you're using Mac, you go to do the activation, of course, against the Microsoft service. So the volume activation works for both. So it gives you the overview of like how many activations you've had and how many things are installed there. So it's a sort of management tool.
I'll try to toss that and not hit anybody.
Oh.
Almost. That's that back. Yes, sir. Yep. Well, what you do is there's a share that you would then sync. So when you're done doing that, you say update the share. The share gets its update, and your different servers can pull from that single share. So MDT is using that deployment share that's on a single server, SCCM, et cetera. So the idea is you're creating one share that everybody, you yourself, or multiple tools or people can update. Right. Okay. You can add them into the folder. There's a way to do it. If I can point you to some documentation that will walk you through how to do it.
All right, I have a microphone question there.
I'm pulling together a little scripted front end to put some of these tools together for our Windows 7 clients like the PSR. Is there a way to script to launch the Windows troubleshooters so that you can, I can script PSR.
So what you're saying is I don't want to see those there, and I'd rather not see them?
I want to make them put them all in one little spot for all the users to get to so they don't have to go here, 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 and here. They just go click, click, and it launches.
I'm sure there is a way. I don't know, because now you're getting into changing the GUI interface around how we see things within that. But you're welcome to email me, and I'll pass it on to the engineering team and see if they have a better answer. Okay. Look up. All right, guys. I can't throw past that far, so you're going to have to come down. Go ahead.
Thank you so much.
Yes, there is a way that when it launches, it automatically does that. I've seen some blog posts on it for some people that have done some scripting with PSR.
Repeat the question.
Pardon me? I would assume if you can script it to automatically launch PSR and start to record that you may be able to put in a command line that would force a comment. That one I don't know. I've seen some people. There is the whole team that wrote PSR has a whole blog on it, and I think they have some stuff in there. Again, if you want, you're welcome to email me and I'll check on it for you. All right.
Sir, and Mike.
You've got programmers who think rather than fix their program, register these DLLs?
We got a little bit of the question, so if can you move a little bit more to the mic and just repeat?
There we go.
Our
Thank-
programmers have written a routine inside their application to go out, copy files, come back, and register the DLLs.
Yep.
None of our users are admins; they're all just standard users. And this fails. The only way to get this to work when they put updates out there is to right-click on the app, say "Run as administrator" one time. Is there
Yep.
a way to fix this?
The ACT, I don't know if they have any. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a great question for Chris Jackson on the
Yeah.
session we referenced.
Go to his App Compat session. He'll actually walk through that tomorrow because that is his specialty.
Wednesday, 10:15, Chris Jackson does a session on App Compat. Yeah,
And that's absolutely in
he's
his
an
square
expert
zone.
on that. So.
Before everybody else leaves, we want to thank the folks who did come. Thank you very much. Fill out the surveys. We'll continue to answer questions, so we'll do that. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.